Hey, welcome to the Independent Consulting Business Owner Weekly Stand Up. Just a short video that I love doing every Friday, or as many Fridays as I can, to help you as an independent consulting business owner to really take a step back and think about what's going to be effective in moving your business forward so you make more money, make more impact, and have more flexibility and freedom in your day-to-day life. So with that, today I want to focus in on something really exciting. The podcast that I host called Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast, it just hit a year anniversary. So I've made it a whole year of producing weekly content, sharing a lot of ideas of how you can grow your business and create a more repeatable and predictable business development engine, and how to balance client delivery with the time that you've got to spend working on cultivating your business. So we hit a year's anniversary, and it turns out that that puts the podcast into the top 17% of podcasts. Most podcasts don't make it to their year anniversary. So literally by being consistent every week, I've hit that top 20, above the top 20%. And as well as over 10,000 downloads now. So, and I hear from so many of you on a weekly basis about how the content is impacting you. So today I just wanted a quick celebration of that year anniversary. If you haven't caught the podcast yet, go find it. It's called Grow Your Independent Consulting Business Podcast. I'll type it into the chat here in a minute. And but what I really wanted to focus on today is the top 5 lessons that I've taken away from a year of podcasting and how that applies to you and your own thought leadership. So you may not have a podcast, you may not have anything right now, but the trick here is, how do you get a platform? How do you create a platform for yourself that you love and that is valuable to your ideal clients, and then stay consistent at it? So you're creating that reputation as the sought after consultant for whatever it is that you do. It makes your business development process so much easier because people end up coming to you versus you having to go out and find the clients. It's you attracting those ideal clients to you through the thought leadership that you're producing. So I'm going to share with you these 5 lessons learned that I have compiled after the first year of podcasting, and talk with you about how those apply to you and whatever type of thought leadership you're either doing now or plan to do moving forward. So the first lesson learned is to set yourself some guiding principles. Figure out what is my guiding principle here. Doesn't sound too sexy, right? But it's so important, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a guiding principle, it's really hard to keep going. Why am I doing this, right? I'll give you a couple of examples. Some guiding principles are, for me and my podcast, I want to get as much information out there as possible, high quality information that consultants can use and essentially take as shortcuts to running their business and succeeding in their business, because I know that time is such an issue. It's so challenging to balance delivery with running a business. And a lot of times we neglect running the business because, number one, it doesn't come as comfortably to us or naturally to us. And number two, a lot of times we think, well, I don't need to deal with that this week. I'll worry about it next week. I'm working on a client. And then we keep kicking the can down the road and end up creating a feast or famine cycle, right? Or not reaching our full potential. So for me, the guiding principle here is I want to impact as many consultants as possible with short, actionable, high quality strategies that you can use to make your business successful. And the guiding principles kind of underneath that are: done is better than perfect. I don't know about you, but as a recovering perfectionist, this is incredibly important. Done is better than perfect. I would literally never be past episode number 1 if I was still trying to perfect things. I stutter. I use the word too much. I forget words sometimes, and all of that just happens. I'm not going to stop and re-record and keep trying to perfect, because then that doesn't serve the audience. What serves the audience is getting these strategies out there in short, actionable, bite-sized pieces so they can move forward. And the same thing for your audience. If your ideal client is a COO, for example, wouldn't they want to hear about trends in the industry or patterns you're seeing or potential blind spots that they might be not noticing? Wouldn't they rather hear that than worry about whether or not you stumble over your words a little bit? The other guiding principle, which is related to this, was for me, and this, I think this will help you too, is that this podcast is not about me. It truly is not about me. Again, if I was making it about me, it would I would be like with a voice coach and constantly recording and all the things, right? It's about the audience. And so for you, that guiding principle can be so impactful. It's about your ideal client and whatever they need to hear. It doesn't have to even be every week, right? Does your ideal client need to hear in order to move the ball forward in their own responsibilities? What did they need to hear in order to not hit blind spots that are coming up and obstacles? So number one, create those guiding principles for yourself. Number two, and these are in no particular order, but really figure out what is the right platform match. So for me, for example, for a long time, I was doing weekly webinars. They were live. They were much more involved than these quick stand-ups that I'm doing right now on the, for you on Fridays. And I realized that just wasn't as much of a match for me. I wasn't loving having to be at my desk every Friday at noon to give this webinar. And quite frankly, my audience wasn't at their desk on Friday at noon. They were either wrapping up their business week or working on a client and it wasn't a good match. And so what I decided to do is convert that webinar into a podcast, which I love. Sometimes I record a video and put it on YouTube simultaneously. And sometimes I have on no makeup and crazy hair and I'm recording it at like midnight. I get to do it on my own terms. So that's a great match for me. And it's also a great match for my audience because they're able to listen to it on demand whenever, on walks. People reach out and tell me they've listened to me on business trips. They've listened to me on trips with their family. They've listened to me when they're on the treadmill, like all the different places. And so it's a good match from a platform perspective. So for you, think about the same thing. What would be a great match for both what you want to do and what you love doing and what your audience, your ideal clients, where they consume? Could be a podcast, could be you just focusing on doing some kind of quarterly speaking at different industry events. It could be you hosting a monthly executive roundtable. It could be you blogging and writing articles and getting those published, either self-published and or published through other avenues, whatever makes sense for you. Just make sure there's that platform match so that you're not constantly battling whatever it is that you chose to do. Thirdly, related, figure out ways to reduce the friction. So many of you I talk to and you have it on your someday list to create content, quote unquote, create content. I want to put content out there. I want to be known for what it is that I do. I want to be a thought leader or be recognized as the thought leader that I am. But then you never get the ball moving. And I know that it's on your plan so many quarters over quarters. And maybe you do something a little bit here and there, but you haven't yet hit that consistency. And so reduce the friction. There's 2 points of friction really to reduce here. There's the mental friction. A lot of us get stuck in the mental friction because we think, well, if I put something out there and it's not good, then I'm going to ruin my reputation. And so that literally never gets you off the starting block. That's why those guiding principles can be so valuable. And then secondly, you want to reduce the friction. How do I make this process as easy as possible? So like for me, for example, I've just broken down my podcast process into such bite-sized pieces. I write an outline one day, it takes me 20 minutes. I create lists of topics when they come to me. So always got a bank. I draft the podcast outline. Then I have another day that I review it. So it's just kind of 20 minutes here and there throughout the week. And it ends up accumulating to a produced and complete product. Which then leads me to, so that's the same thing for you. How can you make your thought leadership a bite-sized approach so that you'll actually do it? Because you and I both know you're never going to have a big chunk of time to go write an article or create a podcast or, prep for a speaking engagement. The other thing then that is related is the lesson learned of of I can do it versus I should do it. I can produce a podcast. I'm sure I can Google and figure out how to edit the audio. I know I can figure out all the technology of how to broadcast it out to the different providers. I'm 110% confident that I can figure out all of the tech because I love tech. What I I want to give you a let me pause for 1 second. I wanted to make sure that you had this assessment, the URL for this assessment that I just created. It's a side topic, but when we're done here, go to icscorecard.com and you can walk through an assessment for your business that's incredibly powerful, that helps you see where the gaps might be in your consulting business plan. Okay, back to what I was talking about, the can versus the should. I know for sure I can figure out the technology. I'm sure you could figure out the technology side of these types of things, whether it's a podcast or figuring out how to do a webinar or something like that. That doesn't mean that I should. That doesn't mean you should. Hiring a podcast producer before I even launch, to help me with launch and to help me from day one, is an incredibly, in hindsight, a really good decision that I made. Most of us think, well, I'll get this thing up and running, and then if it's successful, then I kind of have earned the right to hire someone to help me. And that's the backwards way of looking at it. And I've thought that so many times too. But at the end of the day, go hire someone to help you, because I know you can do it, but it doesn't mean that you should. You have a lot on your plate, either with client delivery or working on business development or both. And you've got to get help with the things that can be outsourced in your business, even if you're not used to investing. And then finally, the fifth lesson learned that I would share with you is focus on the process versus the outcome, at least as you're starting. If I released my episodes, the first 10, even honestly, the first probably 25, and thought that I was going to get these huge numbers of listeners and downloads and ratings and reviews and accolades, and then they didn't come, the outcome, I would have quit, right? You might be the same way. If you think you're going to go out and do the very first speaking engagement and get 50 clients coming to you. Now, let me tell you, that could happen. So don't discount it, but also don't count on it. A lot of times we have to get these reps in. We have to get more comfortable. We have to get into the zone of how do we speak about our ideal clients and the problems that they're having and what resonates with them and what kind of help are they needing that they would consume and get value from. It's a lot of trial and error. When you think I'm focusing on the outcome, I want these numbers or this number of leads or this number of clients from whatever it is that you're doing from a thought leadership perspective, then you're completely missing, you're putting yourself up for failure, because it's going to be so easy to quit when you're not getting that immediate dopamine hit, right? So the shift here is focus on the process. For me, I was 1,000 and still am 1,000% committed that I will be producing this podcast no matter what, every week. I had COVID, I think twice. I've got on vacation. I mean, all the things, right? It came out every single week. Was it amazing every week? I'm probably not. I haven't gone back and listened to it, but I'm sure if I did, I would be horrified at some of the episodes, right? But the point here is like, how do I create a reputation for myself? And for you, how do you create a reputation for yourself? Through consistency, through producing something. Again, it could be every quarter, every month. It doesn't have to be every week like mine, but how do you constantly get your name out in front of those ideal clients so that when they do have a problem that you solve, you're the first person that they think of. And now you've got people coming to you versus you feeling like you've got to pull them in. You've got to go find the clients. You've got to do the heavy lifting and lead generation and that kind of thing. It can make it so much more simple for you and so much more fun because you're putting value out into the world through the thought leadership that you're providing. So that's what I've got for you today. Those 5 tips and lessons learned for you to become consistent and impactful in your thought leadership so that you generate more ideal clients seeking you out. And I mentioned this a moment ago, but I'll mention again. I just created a brand new scorecard that helps you to assess the effectiveness of your consulting business plans. So there's 4 different plans or components that you want to have as part of your consulting plan, your business plan. Most consultants don't realize that there's these 4 components. And then even if you do realize what they are, and are aware of them, it really helps to see and get an outside perspective on how your business and your processes are ranking against what a best practice would be for that business plan, so that ultimately you've got a plan in place that helps you to scale and grow your business. You make more income, more impact, and you also don't have to be the one always delivering or working. You're not getting into that trap of the more you make, the more you work. Okay. So go to icscorecard.com for that. It's a free assessment. It takes about 3.5 minutes on average. And I know that will help you in your business as well. So thanks for tuning in for this Friday's consulting stand up. And I will see you again next week. Take care.